So right off the bat, the franchise doesn't necessarily need saving. When we look at the amount of money the Jurassic franchise pulls in, clearly it's doing pretty well. And of course, I'm sure plenty of people do enjoy or have enjoyed the latest Jurassic World trilogy. I just have some issues with it, and I feel like maybe it could use a little creative redemption. At least in my opinion. I think they did start off with a few nice ideas here and there, but as the movies went on, I just found myself caring less and less for the characters and the overall plot. Now apparently there's a new Jurassic film in the works, and of course there have been rumors about a prequel show set before the events of the first Jurassic Park film. I'm cautiously optimistic about both of these ideas, but also a little bit puzzled. Now, I didn't particularly love Dominion. Again, if you did, that's great. It just wasn't really for me. And I'll get into a little bit more of that throughout the video, but I do think it kind of failed on a promise. You see, after Fallen Kingdom, we have the promise of a literal Jurassic World, in terms of now we have dinosaurs free and roaming all over the modern day planet. But when it came to Dominion, I feel like this idea isn't fully capitalized on. The story of Claire and Owen just didn't really intrigue me. And the subplot with the locusts may have been an okay story on its own, maybe in a separate different film, but I feel like it didn't really fit in with a Jurassic movie. However, I think there might be a silver lining to all this, because we still have the setup. Dinosaurs are all over the planet, but the stories of Claire, Owen, and Macy, and the rest of the cast, have been wrapped up. Maybe this could be a really good opportunity for a TV show. But not one with a continuing story, but rather an anthology. What if we had, let's say, a 5-episode series where each episode took place at a different part of the planet and dealt with a different species of dinosaur, interacting with its modern day environment? I feel like this could be an exciting concept. And it got me thinking about what kind of stories we could tell if a show like this were ever produced. And so, here are some of my ideas of what a possible Jurassic World anthology series could look like. So I think the World series lost some of its tension along the way with regards to its raptors, with the exception of maybe the Indoraptor. I think the raptors kind of lost their edge. In the original film, the scenes with the raptors were filled with suspense. The World franchise started with some suspenseful scenes, like the 3 in the cage while the 4th sneaks up. But as the movies went on, Blue kind of just became Owen's friend, which is fine I guess, and the Atrociraptors in Dominion were kind of just like mindless drones. But what gave the raptors their unique flavor originally wasn't necessarily their teeth or claws, but their intelligence. The fact that they can learn to open doors or set up traps. So what if we had an episode about people being hunted by a pack of raptors, perhaps in a national park somewhere or in an isolated area, a huge forest where you don't have cell phone service, which is a little bit cliche but perhaps necessary to evolve the plot. A group of outdoorsy people are going camping. At some point, while hiking and trekking through the park, they encounter a raptor pack. Now, to make the most of the raptors, I think you have to lean in on their cunning. Maybe their first attack happens at night. One raptor charges into the campsite and the people run out into the dark, only for a few of them to be picked off by the other raptors that were lying in wait. Now, the remaining survivors have to try and make it back to civilization, and they have a little head start while the raptors are, unfortunately, devouring their friends. At this point though, it's very important that the characters don't slip into tropes of silly characters who do things to get themselves easily taken out. Sure, the raptors caught them off guard and tricked them right out of the gate, but now the people should be on high alert. Sometimes in horror or thriller media, you have what I like to call a catalyst character, someone who does something really silly and weird, and sometimes even out of character, just to advance the plot. The person who says, let's split up, or ignores the curse, or opens their front door in the middle of the night to see what's causing all that banging. But we don't want that. We want the opposite of that. Most outdoorsy people I've met are pretty smart and competent, and I think that makes for a more interesting story. Now that they know the raptors are tracking them, maybe they set their own traps. Maybe they put some of their clothes out in the open, hoping the raptors will smell it, and then retrace their footsteps to try and trick the raptors into a pitfall trap. And maybe one raptor even falls for it, and the other raptors learned from the mistake. Maybe the people try to travel out in the open, together, away from the tree line, but the raptors circle around and try and get in front of them, in an area of thick bush, ready for an ambush. Maybe at night, when the people really need to rest, they climb high up in the trees, and in the morning, it seems no raptors are around, so someone climbs down. Uh-oh, the raptors were hiding. But the people planned for this, and the person who climbed down grabs a rope and gets pulled up right away, and a raptor that runs out to chase him gets caught in a snare that the humans set up. Basically, what I'm saying is you have a game of cat and mouse, where the humans and the raptors are competing to outsmart each other, constantly trying to trick and trap each other. Weird pull, but almost like one of those animes where you have two geniuses and they're basically playing a game of like mental chess. Now maybe not those exact traps or that exact story or plot points, but I think something with those ingredients might make an interesting story. So let's talk about that mosasaur. I feel like we didn't get to see the mosasaur do a whole lot after the Fallen Kingdom opening. Certainly there are some cool shots like when it's in the waves or next to that fishing boat, but it didn't really get to be part of the story. Maybe it could be. Since we've seen a glimpse of the mosasaur attacking a fishing vessel, or possibly attacking one, maybe we could do a story about that. Perhaps the mosasaur has decided to hang out in waters that are popular for commercial fishing, and after attacking some boats, the area has become off limits to all fishing until governments can decide what to do about the creature. Our main character could be the captain of a fishing boat that's now out of a job and struggling to make ends meet. Perhaps our captain knew and was friends with people from another fishing boat that was taken out by the mosasaur. So, understandably, a bit upset. Perhaps someone on his crew hears about how mosasaur parts can go for a lot on the black market. Maybe they even have a contact, and our captain decides they want to get rid of the aquatic reptile for revenge and profit. So they find an old whaling ship capable of firing those explosive harpoons. Maybe they even have to take out a loan, adding more pressure on having to find and kill the mosasaur. And to make it even more climactic, perhaps a storm is coming. Of course, this has become a very Moby Dick, Jaws-esque story, which I don't necessarily think is bad, but maybe it needs a bit of its own flair. Perhaps after a few attempts to hunt the mosasaur starts fighting back and attacks the ship, and they are starting to sink. Now they have to make a difficult choice: send out a mayday, compromising their shady activities, or risk sinking into the ocean with an enraged super predator. So maybe they call for help and get rescued by another boat. And perhaps that other boat is run by a scientific team of researchers who have been sent to study and collect data on the mosasaur so that some governing body can try and make a decision as to what to do. Now, our original captain and his crew might not particularly like these rescuers, especially if these scientists think the mosasaur should stay. Wait, why on earth would they want a mosasaur to stay? Wouldn't it be wreaking havoc on the ecosystem? I mean, yeah, probably, but perhaps we can add some movie logic and say there was a recent population boom in some whale species and the mosasaur is keeping the number in check.
What?
Not great, but I think we can push the envelope of realism a bit in the Jurassic franchise. Anyway, now you have two groups with competing views about what is to be done. And maybe the scientists, who I guess would be marine biologists or something, have a plan to add a tracking device to the reptile. So every time it surfaces, it pings its location. And since it's an aquatic reptile, it'll have to surface a decent amount to get air. And maybe fishing boats can go back into certain zones when they know the mosasaur isn't nearby. However, the fishermen want it dead. It could be they somehow snuck some of their lethal explosive harpoons with them and are hoping to use them when the opportunity arises. Now, how this episode should end, I'm not entirely sure. On one hand, we could have it that the captain realizes in the final moment that killing the mosasaur won't change things and that you can't get revenge on nature. Maybe he and his team get a job helping to track it with the scientists and setting the safe zones for other fishermen. Or maybe something a bit more exciting has to happen. But I think either way, the mosasaur should survive, just in case it makes a return in season 2 of this hypothetical fan fiction show that will never happen. So far the episodes are about human versus dinosaur conflict, but what about a little mid-season palate cleanser? What about how the dinosaurs are adjusting to their environment irrespective of humans? Perhaps like a pair of Oviraptors trying to survive in the jungles of northern India. Maybe they escaped from a local zoo or farm or something. Why Oviraptors? Well, maybe there's a better choice, but I just thought a smaller dinosaur that would have to look after its eggs would be better, as from my understanding as a normie non-paleontologist nobody, despite the name meaning egg thief, recent studies suggest it was found close to its own nest and it was actually looking after the eggs. There's a page on Arizona State University that seems to suggest as much. So maybe you have a mating pair trying to find food, apparently they were omnivores, at the same time trying to avoid tigers and leopards and just take care of their nest. Again, I don't know if they would actually do this, but these are Jurassic Park rules. Now, on one hand, you could go all out as if it's a documentary episode with a narrator or even like a host following them and filming them, but I don't know if you even need that. What if it was just the dinosaurs and maybe a musical score? Would that work? A bit like the beginning of Dominion, but also I recently found these incredible videos by a channel called Dead Sound. They make these animated dinosaur videos that have music and sound effects but no narration, and they are amazing. The Last Tyrant is an emotional roller coaster of a video, and I urge you to watch it after this. But I think it proves you can tell a story without narration and without people, and a good story at that. Perhaps the Oviraptors struggle to stay alive and out of the way of predators. Maybe shortly after the eggs hatch, one of the pair dies trying to protect the young dinosaurs from a leopard or something, and the remaining adult has to take care of the young. Again, no idea if this is accurate to real life, it's just saying it for the story. So they have to try and teach them to find food and avoid big predators, etc. And the whole unspoken question of the episode is, can they survive in a modern day environment? Kind of like those Vividen videos. Perhaps the remaining surviving adult doesn't even make it, which seems a bit sad, but perhaps they have managed to raise the young enough that they are capable of surviving on their own. There's a phrase I've heard used by some biologists and zoologists sometimes that goes like, success is measured in the animal kingdom by the amount of young left behind. And I guess this statement will be proven true by the end because we'll see the young Oviraptors going out into the jungle and the unspoken question is answered with a perhaps. This episode is a harder sell, I imagine, but perhaps it can be a little bit shorter than the others. If the others are like 45 minutes to an hour, this could be like a 20-25 minute shorter episode, just to see the dinosaurs from a different light. Then we get back into the excitement. So for the next episode for this make-believe show, I want to start with a setting. And that setting is somewhere around Lake Tanganyika. 4 separate countries share the lake, including some with infamous real-life man-eaters. You might know where this is going. So let's say we choose the nation Burundi and a rural area near the lake, and that area is getting complaints. So a local ranger goes out to investigate and interviews people about a big dinosaur attacking people near the lake. Perhaps this ranger reports this to his higher-ups, but they're skeptical. Maybe they say people are just saying this because dinosaurs are all over the international news, and it's probably just a big crocodile that's attacking people. And why would there be a large dinosaur out here in rural Burundi? And perhaps the ranger agrees. People are prone to misidentification and overestimating size, and we do know that unfortunately people are killed by Nile crocodiles every year. But hey, he still has to deal with this man-eating crocodile, right? So one night, while the ranger's out by the lake, shining a big flashlight over the water, looking for this big problem croc, he sees a huge long snout on the water. But not only that, a massive sail too. Yep, we have our Spinosaurus. Our ranger informs his superiors, but they think he's also mistaken, taken in by the power of suggestion, and saw something that wasn't really there. But he knows what he saw, and he knows he has to put a stop to it. So he puts together a team, maybe a few other rangers who realize something isn't right. Maybe some were with him that night. And also, not really necessary, but since this is all just made up anyway, perhaps we could get a cameo from the character Sarah Harding. In the book, and I think in the film as well, she specialized in studying large predators, and perhaps she was collecting data on some species close to one area of the lake when she noticed something was up. Maybe some predator she was studying, like a lion or hyena, was bitten in half, and she knows only a dinosaur could be capable of such a task. So she teams up with the ranger, and they travel up through towns and villages close to the lake shore, following the carnage. It would be kind of similar to the real-life story of Gustav trying to catch the big predator, except the Spino would be coming right out of the lake and into the villages at night, and then disappearing back into the water by day. While this is happening, perhaps we could have a subplot with other rangers trying to investigate why this massive predator is out here without anyone knowing. They try to retrace the first attacks and find they all initially came from an area near a private and expensive resort. A resort where people went to go trophy hunting. And perhaps to entice the biggest thrill seekers for this exclusive hunting club, they got their hands on a Spinosaurus. And either it escaped and they just tried to cover it up, or maybe they were killed by the dinosaur and then it escaped. Perhaps the investigation ranger team only finds a few body parts left at the resort, kind of like a nod to the ship scene at the end of The Lost World, the film. To try and tie the subplot to the main plot, maybe the investigators find a tracking system that was put into the Spinosaurus, and they can radio the rough coordinates to Sarah and our main ranger. I know we already had a plot point with a tracking system for the Mosasaur episode, but I think there should be something to try and tie the two plots together. After the main team gets the coordinates, they race to a village that seems to be a likely spot for the next attack, judging by the trajectory or something of the Spinosaurus tracker. And they get to the village and they raise the alarm, asking anyone living there to help and prepare themselves for an attack that's likely coming by nightfall. The word spreads and more people show up. People from other villages who knew people who had been killed but had been ignored, coming together to fight back. And then the climax is a battle between the people and the Spinosaurus. Maybe they even try and build kind of traps or walls of fire and different things. And maybe the Spinosaurus dies. I know I said the Mosasaur should live, but it seems like there's only one Mosasaur in this series, and perhaps this is a newly created Spinosaurus or something. Not too sure. What if, for the season finale, we did something really out of left field and went back to the park, either Nublar or Sorna, in the early 90s and told a story about some of the other people on the island, like maintenance workers or crew or different scientists that were on the island during or maybe before the events of the original Jurassic Park. Like, what happened to all those people on Isla Sorna? Why did they all have to leave the research centers? Now you might be saying, hold on, why are we going back when there could be tons of more stories to tell about the modern day Jurassic World? Well, that's a good point, but maybe that can be for season 2.
What?
I just think it would be a nice change of pace to take a step back and honor the original series and just do one episode about some of the earlier events on the island from different character perspectives. The Telltale Jurassic Park game actually did a pretty decent job of that from what I can remember. I think there's potential there. I mean, could you imagine maintenance workers having to go out at night to do maintenance on a fence in a T-Rex paddock? Well, the good news is, for stories like this, we actually don't have to imagine. Someone has already made them. If you haven't seen Ali Awada yet, you need to check out their channel. They are described as a filmmaker, animator, and horror lover, and they make a variety of Jurassic Park short horror films in Blender, and they are incredible. Remember when I said that the World series has sort of lost its tension? Well, this channel has it in spades. I watched their short film The River the other day, and wow, it is terrifying. It literally, I know this is cliche, but literally like edge of your seat. It's so good. In the unlikely event a show like this ever happens, which it won't, and this video is pointless, but if it did, Universal should hire them, and you should definitely watch their videos. So before we end this video, I know this was a weird video for the channel, but I'll be going back to more usual topics for the next video and for the videos after that. If you want more videos about wildlife in the media, let me know. Also, if you have any ideas for a Jurassic World show, I'd really like to hear them. I mean, I barely mentioned that many dinosaurs at all, and I'd be curious to hear what kind of episodes you would want to see in a Jurassic anthology series. I'd really like to hear your ideas and stories. Oh, and also, I guess the Battle of Big Rock was kind of what I wanted, but just more of this and longer. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you have a nice day. By the way, here are some videos you should watch.